Good evening and welcome. Yep, sorry about that. Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Ben Francis, and tonight we will hopefully be joined by Sam, a member of the Save Loch Lomond campaign group. She's just in the meeting right now by the National Park, so whenever she comes out, basically she'll join us. We'll get her online and we'll talk about the decision that just got made about the Flamingo Land Park. But before she joins, we'll start with the Ukraine update on day 936 of the conflict. One person has died and at least 41 were wounded on Sunday afternoon when a Russian guided bomb struck a multi-story residential building in the city of Kharkiv. The mayor, Ihor Terekov, said, adding that the bomb hit the 10th floor of the building, with the fire spreading across 4 stories. Prosecutors in the Kharkiv said on Telegram that the body of a 94-year-old woman had been recovered from the 9th floor of the building. 12 other buildings were also damaged, Terekov said. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday night that rescue operations were underway at the 12-story building with people trapped under the rubble. He said 3 children were among the 35 injured. As well on Sunday, President Zelensky again appealed for a shift in the West's policy on the use of long-range weapons, saying Russia was able to carry out at least 100 airstrikes comparable to the one that hit Kharkiv every day. Moscow and Kiev exchanged drone and missile attacks over the weekend. The Ukrainian Air Force said on Sunday it shot down 10 to 14 drones and one of the 3 missiles Russia launched overnight. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry said it downed 29 Ukrainian drones overnight into Sunday over western and southwestern regions in the country, with no damage caused by the falling debris. Ukrainian troops are suffering high losses because Western arms are arriving too slowly to equip the armed forces properly, Zelensky told CNN in an interview aired on Sunday. Russia has been gaining ground in parts of eastern Ukraine in the Donbas region, including around Pokrovsk. Capture of the transport hub could enable Moscow to open new lines of attack. Zelensky said the situation in the east was, quote, very tough, adding that half of Ukraine's brigades were not properly equipped. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said on Saturday that Washington was working on a, quote, substantial new aid package for Ukraine. President Zelensky is due to meet President Biden this month and will present a plan to seek an end to the war. The main elements are security and diplomatic support, as well as military and economic aid, he said. And now moving on to our Gaza-Israel update. At least 41,226 Palestinians have been killed and 95,413 wounded in Gaza since 7th October, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Polio vaccination coverage in Gaza has reached 90%, the head of United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency said today, adding that the next step was to ensure hundreds of children got a second dose at the end of the month. The campaign vaccinated 640,000 children in Gaza under 10 years of age against polio, which began on the 1st of September. Presented major challenges to UNRWA and its partners due to the ongoing Israeli attacks on Gaza. Osama Hamdan, a senior Hamas official, told agency France Press that new generations of fighters have been recruited since the 7th October attacks, less than a week after Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told journalists that Hamas, quote, no longer exists, the military formation in Gaza. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin today that the window was collapsing for a diplomatic solution to the standoff with the Iranian-backed Hezbollah movement in southern Lebanon. Gallant's remarks came as the White House Special Envoy Amos Hochstein visited Israel to discuss the crisis. Yemen's Houthi rebels claimed that they shot down another American MQ-9 Reaper drone, with video circulating online showing what appeared to be a surface-to-air missile strike and flaming wreckage strewn across the ground. Tehran has not sent hypersonic missiles to Yemen's Houthis. Iran's President Mossad Pezeshkian claimed in a televised news conference on Monday. According to a report from Reuters on Sunday, the Houthis claimed they had for the first time, fired an advanced surface-to-surface hypersonic missile towards Israel, which hit an open area in the Ben Shemen forest in central Israel. Iranian President Mousset Pezeshkian said today, sorry about that pronunciation, said today that Tehran would never give up on its missile program and that it needs such determination, and that it needs such a deterrence for its own security. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, have confirmed publicly that 3 Israeli hostages were mistakenly killed in a strike that also took the life of Hamas's Northern Gaza Brigade chief, Ahmed Gandor, in November, according to reports from Hebrew media. Families of Sergeant Ron Sherman, Nick Bither, both 19, and civilian Elia Toledo, 28, who were abducted by Hamas on 7th October, were informed by IDF officials that their loved ones had tragically lost their lives as a result of IDF actions after a comprehensive inquiry. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will travel to New York on the 24th of September, the first day of the high-level general debate by world leaders at the annual UN General Assembly, his office has said on Sunday. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is understood to be considering a visit to Israel after being warned Bethlehem risks becoming a, quote, new Gaza, cut off from the world if extremist Israeli settlers are given their way. The warning was given to Archbishop by Munther Isaac, a Lutheran pastor based in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ. At their conference in Brighton today, the Lib Dems voted to pass a resolution making it party policy to both ban arms sales to Israel and to recognize a Palestinian state. And now we'll move on to our first story of the night. Sir Keir Starmer is in Italy meeting with their right-wing Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure from Labour backbenchers and NGOs to distance his government from Giorgia Meloni's hard-right immigration policies in his bilateral talks in Rome. After the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy said the UK would consider copying Italy's plans to process asylum applicants in a third country, such as Albania, one backbencher questioned why a Labour administration was, quote, seeking to learn lessons from a neo-fascist government, end quote. The Refugee Council and Amnesty International have called on Starmer to avoid any more, quote, gimmicks after the failure of the last government to implement the Rwanda scheme. 8 men died while trying to cross the channel in the early hours of Sunday morning. A 10-month-old baby with suspected hypothermia was among 53 people rescued off the coast of Ambeltius in Pas-de-Calais region of northern France when their dinghy was, quote, smashed on the rocks. The Prime Minister has been in Rome today to examine how Meloni's government has cut the number of people arriving in dinghies across the Mediterranean by almost 2/3 in the past year, from 118,000 to 44,500, by signing deals with countries like Libya and Tunisia. Human rights groups have said the deals have resulted in the widespread abuse and detention of thousands of refugees in Libya and Tunisia, which both have quite long human rights abuse records. The International Rescue Committee, IRC, whose president and chief executive is the former Labour Foreign Secretary David Miliband, said in a statement that Sir Keir Starmer should drop the pursuit of Italy's, quote, costly and ultimately ineffective migration deterrence policies if the UK is to put an end to people dying in the Channel. The IRC said the UK government should instead give refugees access to safe routes so they are no longer forced to make dangerous crossings. The intervention comes after Starmer's praise for the right-wing Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni for making, quote, remarkable progress in cutting irregular migration crossings across the Mediterranean. Kambusu Patel, the acting executive director of the IRC UK, said that Starmer should open safe routes, quote, quote, today's discussion in Italy takes place after a weekend that saw at least 8 lives lost in the Channel just days after the deadliest crossing this year. The statement is a rare intervention from the IRC and follows the earlier condemnation of Starmer from the Refugee Council, Amnesty International, and the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants. And now we'll move on to our next story. Economic experts warn UK government not to repeat the mistakes of the past with an austerity agenda. A group of senior economic experts have warned that the new Labour government have warned the new Labour government not to repeat the mistakes of the past by implementing an austerity agenda that will lead to a substantial real terms cut in public investment. The group includes Sir Anton Muscatelli, chair of the Royal Economic Society and principal of the University of Glasgow, Professor Marina Mazzucato, University College London, and Lord Gus O'Donnell, former UK Cabinet Secretary. The intervention also declares that Westminster's current fiscal framework has helped to drive this short-term thinking and created an inbuilt bias against investment. The Scottish National Party say that they repeatedly warned, including during the recent general election campaign, that Labour's decision to adopt Tory fiscal rules would mean a continuation of austerity cuts to public services and will continue the damaging policy of low investment and low growth. Scottish National Party Westminster Economy spokesperson Dave Duggan said, quote, "After promising change during the general election, the new Labour UK government have announced not the end of Tory austerity, but an intensification of Tory austerity. This timely intervention from prominent experts is the clearest warning yet that Labour's austerity agenda will deeply damage public services and slow economic growth. Austerity is a political choice and it's the wrong choice. Labour should finally listen to this advice and change course." While Sir Keir Starmer's new government have embraced the miserable message that things can only get worse, the SNP has a far greater ambition for our nation, which is rich in energy, resources and talent. With independent powers, Scotland can unite against Westminster austerity, protect our public services and grow our economy. And moving on to our next story, the Scottish National Party say independence is crucial to a better future for Scotland. As the 10th anniversary of Scotland's 2014 independence referendum approached, the SNP has highlighted how independence would be transformational for Scotland and lead to a fairer, wealthier and more equal society where decisions about Scotland are made in Scotland, for Scotland. The party listed examples over the past decade which they say show that Westminster did not act in Scotland's best interests. From economic policies undermining Scottish businesses to the damaging impacts of Brexit, the Scottish National Party say Scotland has been consistently held back by Westminster control. The SNP say that taking decisions about Scotland in Scotland offer the opportunity to build a nation where prosperity and fairness go hand in hand. They say an independent Scotland will strengthen the economy. With full control of our economic levers, Scotland could prioritise Scottish industries, create high-quality jobs and boost trade through access to the European single market. It could also protect and enhance public services. The NHS will remain free at the point of use, and with independence, it will be enshrined in Scotland's constitution and insulated from the threat of Westminster privatisation. By taking control, Scotland can reject Labour's austerity and invest in schools, universities, hospitals, ensuring everyone who has made Scotland their home have access to a world-class public sector. Scotland could also regain access to the European Union. Brexit was not a choice Scotland made, yet its negative impact on trade, education and migration has been profound. Independence will allow Scotland to rejoin the European Union. Independence would also allow for, according to the SNP, building a fairer society. An independent Scotland will have the power to create a fairer nation that supports our most valuable and promotes our most vulnerable and promotes social justice. With independence, we can implement policies that address the root causes of poverty, improve wages, and ensure that no one in Scotland is left behind. An independent Scotland could also be ambitious on climate change, the SNP has claimed. With Scotland's vast renewable energy resources, independence will allow the country to be world-leading in tackling climate change. Kirsty Blackman, MP from the SNP, said, quote, "As we approach this important anniversary of the independence referendum, the SNP calls on everyone who has made Scotland their home to look to the future with hope and ambition." Quote, "Westminster decisions on Brexit, on austerity, Brexit, and the mishandling of Scotland's resources have held Scotland back. People in Scotland deserve better, and we can achieve better things through independence." And going on to our next story, the death toll reached 16 in Central European flooding. The death toll from torrential rain and flooding in Central and Eastern Europe has risen to at least 16, with several more people missing, as authorities reported deaths in the Czech Republic, Poland, and Austria, and warned the worst may still be to come. Poland rose to 5 after a surgeon returning from work drowned in the southwestern town of Nitha, where the hospital was evacuated and patients rescued by raft. 4 more people had died in the southern town of Bielsko, Balia, and Ladek Zdroj, firefighters said. In Austria, local media reported that 2 men aged 70 and 80 drowned after being trapped by rising floodwaters in their homes in the towns of Bokikirchen and Siendrov, both in the hard-hit northeast state of Lower Austria. The Czech police chief, Martin Vondresk, told local radio a woman had drowned in a stream that overflowed its banks near Bretulal, a town of about 15,000 people in the northeast of the Czech Republic, while 7 more people were still unaccounted for. Hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated from their homes across a swathe of Austria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, as Storm Boris unleashed the worst flooding recorded in the region for more than 2 decades. It was described by one Romanian mayor as a catastrophe of epic proportions. The floodwaters burst dams, inundated streets, knocked out electricity, and in some places submerged entire neighborhoods. 7 people died in Romania over the weekend, as well as 1 in Poland and a firefighter in Austria. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk declared a state of emergency in the flooded areas and announced an emergency aid fund of 1 billion zlotys, while his counterpart in Hungary, Viktor Orban, cancelled all international engagements. More than 2,600 people were evacuated across Poland in the last 24 hours, according to the defense minister, Václav Kamist. Slovakia's capital, Bratislava, was also on a high state of alert, while the 600,000 residents of Warlock in Poland were told water levels might not peak before Wednesday. The Czech Prime Minister, Peter Fiala, urged people to, quote, "follow the instructions of mayors and firefighters." As of Sunday evening, he said emergency services had dealt with 7,884 incidents, and over 100,000 households were without power. At least 12,000 people had been evacuated from their homes across the country, the Czech Prime Minister said. On to our next story on American politics. Suspect appears in court over apparent Trump assassination attempt. The suspect in the second apparent assassination attempt of Donald Trump in as many months appeared in federal court this morning as the US political world reacted with shock, and urgent investigations began into how the gunman was able to get so close to the former US president. Ryan Wesley Ruth wore dark blue prison scrubs and shackles on his hands and feet. He sat quietly for about 5 minutes with no visible signs of nervousness before marshals led him back out to await his hearing. As more details about the alleged would-be assassin continued to surface, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, said the state was launching an investigation, quote, the people deserve the truth about the would-be assassin and how he was able to get within 500 yards of the former president and current GOP nominee. DeSantis said in social media the investigation will be jointly led by Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Florida Highway Patrol, the governor's office said on Monday morning. Two members of a congressional task force investigating the earlier assassination attempt in July, Republican Mike Kelly and Democrat Jason Crow, also said they had requested a briefing from the Secret Service. Ruth was apprehended on Sunday in his car and the highway. Prosecutors have not yet announced what charge he will face. He was reported to be a registered Democrat in North Carolina, but also said on social media that he voted for Trump in 2016 and that he supported a hypothetical Republican presidential ticket of Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. President Joe Biden told reporters on Monday that he did not yet have a full report of the Sunday incident at Trump's Florida golf course and was thankful that Trump was, quote, okay. Got you. Quote, the Secret Service needs more help, the president added. Trump posted on social media thanking his security detail and local law enforcement for intervening before the gunman was able to take a shot. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said, quote, there is no place in the country for political violence of any kind, a sentiment also expressed by the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. And so I think Sam has managed to get out of the meeting, so I think she should be joining us now, I'm being told.
Hello.
Hey, I can actually,
Hiya.
hey, I can actually see you because I'm
Can you hear
malfunctioning,
me?
but I can hear you, yeah. I think I'm looking at the right
Hiya. How
screen.
are you?
Hey, good, yeah. So I'm assuming you're up on the screen, but yeah, I can hear you, so they can hear you,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
on the screen. Yeah, I'm on the screen. Well, I think I'm showing in my phone that I'm on the screen, so we're
Okay,
going to
well that's
assume
good
that I'm on
then.
the screen. Yeah.
Okay, it's confirmed. Yeah, you are. Okay. Yeah. So, what do you make of the decision that just got made? Were you like
Oh,
surprised?
no, it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely ecstatic. The people who were there. I mean, people have been there since about the back of one today, so it's been a long, long day. And some of the campaigners have been out since 8:30 this morning because
Yeah.
we took part in the site visit. So it's been a really, really long day. So I'm absolutely exhausted. I think I had a wee bowl of chips about 12 o'clock, and that's been me. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It was bits were worrying, but you've got to trust the process in this, and we've been fighting this now for 8 years. This is an 8-year campaign. So there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and cursing that's been involved in this campaign. And so many people have put so much into it, they put their heart and soul into it. And then to come to this today was quite terrifying. It was
Yeah.
nerve-wracking. But the speakers and everything. But what was fundamentally obvious was the lack of um, preparedment. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it because my brain's not quite working. Between all the excitement and lack of food. The lack of the the developers just didn't seem to be very prepared for some of the questions and even their own application. I mean, for a planning application to be going for 8 years and to answer simple questions like jobs and salaries, they couldn't really, all they could do was go into the kind of management level. They couldn't go into the lower end, of the jobs, the actual core workforce. They couldn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Um, so it was, and then things about traffic management, the flooding, everything. They just seem so prepared, ill prepared. And I'm shocked because these are meant to be professionals, and then all the people that kind of spoke for the development, it was based on, oh, but it'll bring jobs. I mean, one gentleman who's a minister of the local area turned round and said, oh, but it'll bring jobs for the youngsters. I mean, come on, seriously, seasonal jobs with really low wages, that's the best we can hope for our youngsters and future generations. It was quite appalling, and that's what he thinks that the youngsters should be aspiring to. Um, but yeah, but the board members and the officials were just absolutely amazing. They pointed out all the biggest issue is the flooding. Um, and the it turns out there hasn't been a proper assessment done with the River Leven for 23 years, and the same with the floodgates at the mouth of Loch Lomond into River Leven. There's been no proper modelling or assessment, because these were constructed a way back when you didn't need to do this. So there needs to be, so I think moving forward, the national park's looking at possibly, I imagine they will be, not possibly, they will you know, the river and
Yeah.
how it copes with flooding and how that affects the land which gets flooded. Because one of the issues, we were all objecting because we know there's contaminants in that land, and they are basically harmful to us, they're harmful to nature, they're harmful to the environment.
Yeah.
It's heavy metals. And so this all needs to be assessed properly, and it's never been done. So on a positive, um, apart from winning the, the decision, there's a bigger positive, which is the assessment of how that will impact on humans using the land, how it will affect the environment and the wildlife. So that's a good thing. So a few good positives come out of this today, and it also means that on that piece of land, um, they may think twice about developing that, because all this work needs to get done before any other developers come along, or and it could be that they decide that the land just cannot be developed due to the contamination. And that was one of our biggest concerns with the campaign. There was lots and lots of concerns, but this was one in terms of public health, because people fish in that river. Um, and sometimes our water source comes from the loch as well. So there is a public health issue there as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're well
Yeah.
pleased.
Well, what sort of other issues were there? I was reading a bit on it. Like, it seemed like quite a lot of people, like loads of people, were behind, like the movement. So, like, was it just pollution mostly, or were there sort of other issues, like other
No,
factors at play?
basically, where do you want me to go to start? I could be here all night going through this one. This is an 8 year long campaign, so I could be here all night. Basically, it's public land. The land was given to private developers a way back in 1900 and whatever, and the British Railways and a silk factory. When the silk factory went bankrupt and the British Railway basically reorganised, the land was bought back by the public using public funds. So the land has been in public hands since late 1980s, so probably way before you were born, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So it's been back in public hands since then. And basically, one of the arguments and one of the reasons is that Flamingo Land were pretty much, we, our taxpayers' money, paid for it. So you don't need to be a professor in finance and business to know that if you buy something and it's an asset, you want it to make money back for you. And so the public spent over £21 million on this land, and Flamingo Land were getting it for pennies, as well as all the assessments, everything to do with the application was being paid for by the taxpayer through Scottish Enterprise. And also, as well, um, there would have been incentives for, you know, jobs and things like that, and financial incentives and all that down the line. So that was one of the issues, was the fact that the public were not getting a return for their buck, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, so that was one issue,
Well,
because it made no business sense. It made no business sense whatsoever. Yeah.
yeah, no, I just guess on that, like now it's all finished, and that they're planning their planning attempts being like rejected. Are there any like ideas like of to put the land to use? or is it just going to be kept as like
Well,
natural?
a lot of people quite like the land the way it is because there's ancient
Yeah,
woodland there,
yeah,
and
I
a
read about
lot of
that.
ancient
Yeah,
woodland. Yeah, and if you go onto the Save Loch Lomond page, I done a wee live first thing this morning. It was quite boring. It was me walking around, gibbering. But it gives you a kind of idea of what the landscape looks like. And there's a kind of like a field meadow kind of park area where
yeah,
the railway used to be. And that's the nature's completely reclaimed that. Unless you're a local and you know what that was, you would never know.
yeah,
And people are down there dog walking, they're down there going for jogs, picnicking. You get people going down with a wee golf ball and a golf club, having a wee bit of putting. There's all sorts of things going down there. So the land is being naturally, apart from the nature reclaiming the land,
yeah,
the locals have actually benefited from that by
yeah.
using the natural resource that's there, and then with the woodland as well. I mean, if you've got kids or you're a big kid like me that I used to
Huh.
be, running through the woodland with the kids and stuff like that, or a dog or whatever, there's something that's good for the soul,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
during lockdown with COVID, that land became so vital for people, and also not just for locals, because people from the city, like Glasgow, Glasgow's not very far away from us.
yeah,
So if you're wanting an escape to away from, the buildings and the cars and the
yeah,
bustling and the
yeah, yeah,
noise, you know, driving through or getting a train into Balloch and not having to wander very far. You just got off the train and you're there. Um, it's just nice and peaceful and tranquil. And it's
where
just
is
nice
it?
sometimes.
Where is the land specifically? Is it like on like the west coast of the Loch, just north of Balloch?
No, it's Balloch South.
Always south
So
of it.
basically yeah, so it's south of Loch Lomond, at Balloch. So the land that Flamingo Land were proposed, they were wanting,
Yeah,
goes from basically Balloch train station
yeah,
all the way round by the river, up by the river, what's known as the riverside, up by the ancient woodlands, going across to Lomond Shores, right up to the border of Cameron House. It's a vast, vast piece of land which belongs to the public. That they were wanting to make into a water park, two hotels, a brewery, and multiple lodges and car parking. Because part of one of the assessments, they actually admitted that there was going to be an extra 250 cars per day visiting that site and what we've already got. And if you know the area very well, we can't cope with the traffic we've got at the moment, especially on a sunny day. Um, we become gridlocked. I mean, I
yeah,
stay in the village just along the road, and I mean, Linda will tell you. I remember once I was meant to be travelling up to Glasgow to the show way back before COVID, to talk about this, and I was stuck in traffic for 40 minutes before I got, so I was late for the programme, a bit like tonight actually. But I was majorly late for the programme. I think that was the first time I was ever on Broadcasting Scotland all the
yeah,
way years ago. So yeah, it's a major problem if you're trying to get around,
yeah. No, I can see
because
what you
there's no other
mean. Yeah,
road. Yeah, so it's so to have this development is going to bring another 250 cars on average per day to the area. To add to that, it's just madness.
yeah. That must have been a lot of pressure for the town because I've been to Balloch a bunch of times and it's not that big, is it? Like having a massive resort
It's just
like
a
that
wee
next to it.
village.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a village. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
That'd be a big.
tiny. It's just
Yeah,
a wee. Basically, it would end up that the whole of Bala would be developed.
yeah,
Literally the whole, apart from the country park. Um, but it would have been wholly developed. And that particular piece of land is the last accessible public part of the loch for anyone that doesn't have a car or is disabled. and doesn't have
Really?
access to a car. Yeah, and that was part of the issue as well, because if you have mobility issues and you don't drive, you cannot access the loch by Bal Country Park, and there's no public transport really going round the loch, or what public transport that goes round the loch is quite poor. So
Yeah, yeah, it's
basically,
rubbish.
it would
Yeah,
be a form of discrimination against people with mobility issues, really, not to be able to access the part of the loch, basically
yeah,
Loch Lomond,
yeah, yeah,
So there's a lot of issues. So lots of reasons why people were objecting to it. Um, and yes, there was people who weren't local to the area that objected, and it's people who visit the area who come and basically spend their money in our community. And we felt that it was important from day dot to ask them how they felt about a development like this. Would they keep coming to Loch Lomond to visit, or Balloch? And they said no. So
yeah,
a lot of these people objected as well, because I think I've lost count of the objections. I think there's well over 140,000 objections went in against it. But I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember I totally lost count, because I think there was an extra 300 in today,
yeah, yeah.
before the 12 o'clock deadline. So yeah, yeah. Hey,
No.
I can retire now. We can all retire. We're done.
What I guess like just like on the campaign, like what was like the campaign like? Because like how long was it? 8 years. Like what sort of
eight
activities did you
years.
do? That seemed yeah.
Oh,
Well,
crikey, what did we not do?
yeah,
Oh, my goodness. Oh, we went to independence rallies. We were out in the streets. We were obviously social media. One of the things when I set up Save Loch Lomond, it was a community campaign. It was a platform for the community, to give them a voice, because one of the issues that um, a lot of us had noticed was people never had a voice. They never had a platform, to give their voice. So that was the whole point. So yeah, we dressed up, we went to local events, we went to other events. We basically gate crashed one of Nicola Sturgeon's events. It was at Govan Hill,
oh yeah,
the festival, and we went along because we had been trying to get a hold of Nicola Sturgeon was the First Minister at the time, and
yeah,
we couldn't get past her team whatsoever. So we decided we were going to go along to the festival, the Govan Hill Festival, and we were greatly received. People were lovely, they were amazing, and
yeah. But
we just
was that the one
I
in Queen's
spied
Park?
Nicola, and yeah, and we
Okay.
just kind of went, "Oi, Nicola!" and we got a selfie with her. It was great. Um, yeah, we've done all sorts. We've been on shows and fairground rides, and yeah, we've done all sorts. As well as the serious stuff. But one of the things we found, in order to engage with people, um, we we basically wanted to come across as not being aggressive, because I think
Yeah,
sometimes when people are campaigning, they become so passionate that they actually become aggressive without realizing they're becoming aggressive, and so we tried to make it as fun as possible, so people wouldn't feel intimidated by us when we were talking to them. So dressing up in animal outfits. My son came around with us from day dot. He would dress up, hand out flyers, talk to people, ask questions, and whatever. He
yeah,
get well involved. So yeah, just about getting families involved, normal people involved. When we were out campaigning, the politics and everything, we tried to keep away from that and just, talk to real people and be real people ourselves,
yeah, yeah,
about why we disagreed with it, and speak to people and listen to their reasons. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been hard, because part of, if you're out campaigning, one of the dark side of campaigning is you become a target for people who disagree with you, and they can be quite nasty, and that can have a tough toll on people as well psychologically. So yeah, it's been a hard one. It's been hard. So pleased it's over. So glad
Yeah.
it's over.
Were you
Yeah,
surprised?
8 years. I can't believe it.
Were you surprised how big it was? Because I was just doing reading on today, and the amount of people that got involved and said their opinion, insane.
I never expected the campaign as such to get as big as what it did. All I was interested in was giving people a platform and a voice, and that was for every. It didn't matter who you were, um, because I think when campaigns and stuff, people focus too much on politicians, on celebrities, and sometimes the normal people who whatever is going to affect more than anything, their voice gets hidden, their voice gets lost, of the whole ethos behind Save Loch Lomond was to give everybody a voice. Um, and I was shocked. I'm still shocked to this day at how big the campaign got. But that's down to the community, that's down to the people, that's down to everybody who played their part. Um, because the work that people put into this campaign, whether it was just going out putting leaflets through doors or talking to people or just making an objection or sharing a post on social media, all that matters, all
Yeah.
that counts, and that's what made the campaign what it was.
What the campaign changed how you think about democracy in Scotland? Because I feel like a lot of people are often
Oh
quite
yeah,
cynical, but that's a real democratic movement, you know?
yeah. I'm very cynical. Um, the national park is not a democratic organisation in any shape or form.
Yeah,
If you look into the workings of the national park, my don't get me wrong, my faith in Scottish democracy has been rocked so many times throughout this campaign. Um, because many times when you were trying to deal with the politicians, they would hide behind their teams or they would talk to you because we were just normal people. Normal people. We weren't, big wigs or anything like that. We never had fancy jobs. None of us had fancy jobs. We were just normal people with normal jobs. You kind of get fobbed off if as if you didn't know what you were talking about. And sometimes it was like, I mean, even the Flamingo Land lot called us stupid, and we didn't understand the application form. So yeah, there was times where the politicians especially had. And when you vote in a politician, they're there to represent the constituency. They're there to work for you. After all, that's what they get paid for. That's what our taxpayers' money pays for. And sometimes, yeah, a lot of times, yeah, my faith in democracy was rocked in the sense that I just, at times, I had no faith in a lot of the politicians and the process. Um, but we stuck with it. Everybody in the community stuck with it, and we all kind of pulled each other along. Um, and we got there, and we got there. But I do think when it comes to the national park, in terms of the process and how they elect their board members, needs to be up for a review and how
yeah,
they do that because the whole process of the board members is not democratic whatsoever, and you cannot hold them to account the same way you can hold a councillor or you can't contact them. You can't contact a board member the way you can contact you can contact like a politician even though it's hard with their team, but you can't send an email, you can't pick up the phone, or you can't do that with the board members. It all goes to a centralised email point, and then it's up to them if they pass that information on to the board members. So these board members are elected, and sometimes chosen. There's so many that's elected, and there's so many that are chosen by the Scottish Government. And they can't be held accountable to the public who effectively pay their wages. I mean, these people are getting anything from £200 a day. So yeah, I have an issue with that, and I would like to see the Scottish Government turn around and doing a review of how board members in a national park are elected and how they conduct themselves as well.
Yeah, and they're like I guess members of like they're publicly funded, right? Like the national park, like it's not a private thing or
No, it's public
yeah,
funded.
yeah, yeah. But you're saying like quite a lot of the board members aren't like actually elected. Like there's not much
Yeah,
accountability. Yeah, I didn't
yeah,
know
there's
that.
not
Yeah,
much accountability, and that's the problem. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people don't realise that
yeah,
because a lot of people think it's just like local authority. And that was the hardest bit because when the campaign started, I thought about it as being like a local authority,
yeah,
and so everybody on the campaign had to self-educate on how to turn round and how to deal with the national park because none of us had ever been in that situation before. So we all had to self-educate and research into how the national park operates.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean that assumption makes sense. That's what I would assume too if they're like yeah, a public
Mm,
body. Yeah,
yeah, and that's how we had to. And while we were educating ourselves, we were having to educate the general public as well. Because they all assumed it worked the same way as a local authority.
So are you staying on for the last two stories, or I'm just gonna start it now?
Um, well, I am actually, if you don't mind, oh yeah, I'm getting told Linda's shouting at me in the ear. Yeah, I'm staying on for the
Oh, you
rest of the
are.
stories. Yeah, on
You've
you go.
instructed. Okay.
I'll sit here and just listen now. On you go.
So we'll go on to the second last story: Scottish government support for green hydrogen. Businesses will be able to bid for a share of up to £7 million of Scottish government funding to help kickstart green hydrogen project across Scotland. The funding will help cover the development stage cost of green hydrogen production projects, with production capacity of between 5 and 400 megawatts, the equivalent to the production of enough hydrogen to heat at least 200 to over 16,000 homes. Support will also be available for work supporting the hydrogen supply chain and storage solutions, and will play an important role in helping the industry scale up as it responds to market demand. Organisations have until the end of the month to apply for a maximum of £2 million of match funding from the scheme, which has been co-developed with Scottish Enterprise, who will facilitate and manage the fund. It complements a total of almost £7 million from the Scottish Government's Hydrogen Innovation Scheme, which has supported 31 projects across the country since 2023. Acting Minister for Climate Action, um, Al- Alander Allen said, quote, our energy sector and the development of green hydrogen in particular will play a crucial role in growing Scotland's economy and delivering on our net zero targets. Quote, this is due to our capacity to generate so much renewable energy, which is crucial to the process of making green hydrogen. This funding, which will help support the development of green hydrogen projects and hydrogen hubs across the country, will in time help unlock opportunities in hydrogen for use and export and to power the clean energy intensive industries of the future. Quote, it demonstrates that Scotland is well positioned to lead the way in developing renewable energy in a way that delivers economic benefits, and it also shows our commitment to help grow the hydrogen sector, one of the 5 priority areas set out in our new Green Industrial Strategy. Organisations have until the 27th of September to submit expressions of interest in the new fund. So, Sam, what do you think of the new fund that's been created?
Oh, don't ask me that question, then I seriously.
Or
Yeah,
the
it's
general
good in a way,
story?
but
Any yeah,
yeah,
any
you know,
thoughts?
um, yeah. Well, the thing is, green energy is always a good thing. I'm always skeptical when it comes to Scottish enterprise.
Yeah.
because Scottish Enterprise were partnerships of Flamingo Land. So yeah, watch this space. I might have another campaign starting soon, but no, only kidding. I'm not doing any more. But no, it's, we'll wait and see. Watch this space. It's hard to, it's okay when all these things get put out until you actually see the fine print. You don't actually know how they're going to work. But when it comes to green energy, I am a fan of green energy. So, well, guess we'll just need to watch and wait and see.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, yeah. And on to our last story of the night. Rare Robert Burns statue completes journey from South Africa to new home in Stirling. A rare surviving cast iron statue of Robert Burns, which was discovered in a compost heap in the 1950s in Durban, South Africa, has made its new home at the Engine Shed, Scotland's dedicated building conservation centre in Stirling. The statue had been in Cape Town but was lost and forgotten until it was happily rediscovered under a compost heap in the garden of Durban. The statue remained in South Africa until purchased by Paul and Alexandra Moritz in 2013, who organised for the statue to be shipped back to Scotland. The statue was designed by the eminent sculptor David Waston Stevenson and originally cast at the famous McFarlane Foundry in Saracen, Glasgow, prior to the First World War. The Saracen Foundry had a reputation for producing high quality pieces of work, many of which are now considered to be of major historical importance. After its rediscovery, the statue was carefully transported back to the Morris's home in Alloway. Their rusty Rabbie was sympathetically restored, including elite testing on fakes of paint to confirm the original colour. It has now been repainted with colours that reflect the original finish from when it was left in the McLean's foundry around 1900, around 1900, sorry. After enjoying sharing their home with Rabbie and giving talks about his discovery at Burns clubs and historical societies, Paul and Alexandra Morris decided the time was right for him to move on to a place where he would be fully appreciated and used for educational purposes, kindly donating him to HES. Alexandra Morris commented, quote, "We want to find a safe, secure home for the statue, and after seeing how beautifully Rabbie was curated at the engine shed, we are delighted with our decision. The statue will be on display at the engine shed as part of the site's Doors Open Days weekend, where visitors will be able to learn about the innovative iron founders competing to make the best metalwork, from statues like Rabbie to massive decorative cast iron ceilings and the traditional metalworking techniques they used. Visitors may even see evidence of sculptor David Stevenson's skill when crafting the statue of Rabbie Burns. So, Sam, what do you make of that story?
That's amazing. I didn't know any of that. That
Yeah,
is absolutely amazing. That was fascinating listening to. My goodness, us Scots really get around, don't we?
I know, yeah.
Um, we really do get around. We really do get around the world. That is amazing. That's fantastic. Nice to see it's back home. Um, yeah, that's just wow. I'll need to go and do a wee bit of research on that myself now and go and find a picture. That is
Yeah, I know.
absolutely, oh,
Very
that's a
far
lovely wee
away.
story. Yeah,
South Africa,
it's what,
yeah.
how did they, yeah, how did they get away over there? Obviously somebody's took it, but it would be interesting to find out how it got over
Yeah,
there.
no,
But
that's what I was
yeah,
wondering
that's
when I was
fascinating.
reading about the story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, how did they get there? Who took it? And why? Is it one of those ones that you know how people kind of go into a garden, steal a gnome and take it on their holidays and take pictures? Has it been one of those ones maybe, do you think?
Yeah, I know.
Way
I don't
back
know,
in the
yeah, who
beginning
knows?
of the
Maybe a future broadcast of Scotland story. Finds it,
yeah,
find where it came from.
but yeah, where did it come from? That's I didn't know that. And so yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have a look now to find out more about that. Thank you.
Well, I think our time's up anyway, so that was the last story. My usual reminder that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. Our programmes will always be free to view, however, if you can afford just £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. To everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you very much. Right now, we urgently need to increase our donation if we are able to pay the bills. We face costs of just over £4,000 every month, but our income is just over £2,500 a month, and we are now facing mounting debts. Please donate whatever you can afford. So thank you again to our guest Sam. Thanks, Sam, and
Thank
goodbye.
you.
And goodbye, and thanks for watching.